We can't
Well,
allow
that would definitely piss them off because they were trying to get ranchers to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the for anybody that's just tuning in, we're talking about the KC Cattle Company guys that we had on here last week. Apparently their Twitter account is suspended or taken down or something. It's not there. So it's a big dark page full of nothing. Account suspended is what it says. And you click on the X rules over here. And I don't even know if I want to read these, because if I read them, then I don't know. Who knows what that algorithm is going to do. But violent speech, violent and hateful entities, child sexual exploitation. I feel like that should be number one.
Yeah.
Probably ought to bump that one up a little bit.
Yeah. Abuse, harassment, hateful conduct, perpetrators of violent attacks, suicide, sensitive media, illegal or certain regulated goods.
So is the showing the beef like in the cattle, is that like sensitive media?
Violence? You killed a cow.
I can't.
Hey, real quick, Shane, I just sent in the group chat, the pod chat, a QR code for people. Like, put that up on the screen. Go follow them on Noster. We can at least get that going while we continue to BS about this. BS.
I still think it's Gates and Monsanto. I'm sorry, but they're like pushing the whole bug narrative, and Monsanto owns all the land that all the agricultural like farmers are leasing, and then they have the whole cartel around fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and they own the marketplaces that determine the pricing for the beef and the shipping companies.
Well, and I'm also reminded of when we had Odell on, and he said, you think that Elon bought Twitter for the freedom of speech? Like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, Look, people are still getting suspended for bullshit. It's clearly not anything that you can find much more. Hell, Guy just had a tweet yesterday where he was saying how like I go out of my way to, whenever I have like violent messages or videos in my feed, I block whoever is sending those, and they keep showing up in my feed.
Mm-hmm.
And so like clearly like the algorithm's broken. So they will show like, it's clearly not a violence or anything like that. It's clearly whatever their agenda is behind it. So stop thinking that Elon is like the fucking savior of anything. Like, he can rug you just as much as anybody. You start using some platforms, even if it's not your main thing, like, you better have some exposure on some of these alternative decentralized platforms.
Well, and so one thing I had discussed with a friend of mine recently about the whole Elon buying Twitter thing is that people should also like consider he was going to be coming under some fire eventually, in my opinion, anyway, because all of his income is directly provided by Uncle Sam. Like, all of his income.
Yeah.
The Boring Company is government contracts. Why do you think nobody like talks about him anymore? The Solar City, I think he bought off his cousin, or his cousin runs it or something like that. You don't hear them talked about ever. SpaceX, like in a biography that was written back in 2017, I think, he wrote in the biography that Tesla and SpaceX were about to go down the train at the same exact time until he got the call on like a Christmas or a Christmas Eve morning that the SpaceX like contract was awarded to them by NASA or whoever. And then he used some of those funds to like pay the salaries for his Tesla employees. So like everything that he is now is provided to him by the US government. And so eventually he was gonna get squeezed or like whatever eventually. So like by claiming he was gonna be a champion of free speech and buy Twitter with all that money that Uncle Sam gave him, like he bought himself some time. It was a clever move.
It's a psyop.
Yeah, it was a clever move.
And I mean, speaking of psyops, like, it's been openly discussed on how Tony Stark's character in the Avengers movies was based off of Elon, like this rich dude.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
So shifting gears slightly here, did anybody give Guy Swann the link for this?
I did.
He just posted something saying he's going to be on the show tonight. So
Yeah, he knows. We're good.
He's like, I'll be there when I get there. Okay.
Kind of Swann motherfuckers.
I am Bitcoin Audible. You don't tell me when to show up.
He's probably wrapping up another show or reading right now, for God's sake.
Probably.
he does read a lot.
We need to have him talk about his conversation he had with Tour. If you guys didn't listen to that one, they talked about like everything as far as society that we like to talk about, like the structure of communism and like the whole utilizing of real estate to squeeze like the middle class and everything. It was a good chat.
Is that a protein shake?
Yeah.
Put yourself on mute before you shake your protein shake. Jesus, we're live.
It's beef protein and whole milk, man.
Dude, I want to be trapped in a room with you right now for the next hour and a half. Oh man, I'll tell you what. Alex knows this. You guys, I don't think we're privy to the trappings of living in birthing life on a ship. With a bunch of dudes that are jacking steel and eating tons of protein on a daily basis. Like that is some close quarters. And good Lord, some of the stuff that comes out of people kind of makes you think of that part in Mr. What is it? The Matrix where, Mr. Smith is like, I can just smell it. All of it. Dude.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, yeah. Oh man, I was like, yeah, humans are pretty disgusting people.
Especially if you treat your digestive tract like crap and feed a bunch of garbage through it. Especially if you're on a ship and you can only eat garbage.
Well, on the contrary, man, they fed us pretty well. Depends.
Did they?
On the ship you were on. Yeah, depends on the ship you were on. But, yeah, they fed us. They fed us pretty good, man. You get 3 hots a day, and it's usually not too bad. Yeah, that's also a primary indicator that you're about to start shooting is when they start feeding you steak and lobster dinners.
Yeah.
It's a clever move.
It's on the way.
That means, yeah.
I want to know what the like steak and lobster markets did like before every like major war, like in the last like 20 years, because that is always like the big meal you hear about. I would love to see like what the markets did at those times.
Now I got another suspect to add to my list that's behind every war that we've ever had.
It's the lobster industry.
That's right.
Lobster.
Fucking Maine.
Big beef.
That's another reason to get your beef from Kansas City Cattle Company right there.
Yep.
Look at this guy. Fucking professional here.
For all of you guys that don't know out there, and this is maybe a major announcement after last week, we have secured our first sponsor in Kansas City Cattle Company. Unbelievable.
We need a soundboard.
You guys want that kind of shit on here? I'll add it. If that's what you want, you say the word. I'll give you all sorts of sound effects. But
until then, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah, nice. You got the visuals too up there.
That's right.
Oh man, freaking killing it.
But yeah, I mean, KC Cattle Company, hats off to you guys. You got an amazing product out there. We'll should we pay the bills first? Let's pay the bills first. Let's take care of that. Well, Guy's not here. He may go in the who was the first one who was late? Was it Breedlove?
You gotta play the intro when Guy's here.
Yeah, no, I thought we'd pay the bills with the KC Cattle Company commercial. So let's roll that.
Do it. That's not a commercial. That's just this is a video that they've got on their website, which, by the way, I think is really good. I guess you could say it's commercial, but it's cool. You get some background on the company and what makes these dudes tick. So yeah, that's good.
Listen to KC Cattle Company, a bunch of veterans that are out there taking Bitcoin for beef, delivering it to your door. I know Jordan's already got his. Mine's being delivered probably tomorrow or the next day. Man, half a cow for what was it? $2,900. Not bad.
It was delivered in 2 days to Jordan. Like that. That's impressive.
The only thing that slowed things down was the fees and how long it took for the transaction to go through. But once the transaction went through, boom, 2 days it was here.
Paid in Bitcoin.
Paid in Bitcoin. This is how you build parallel economies. Watch this.
Here we have one of our top secret ribeyes. This is our best in class product. It is a BMS score of 7 and up. BMS means beef marble score. So it's the intramuscular fat. You want to see a lot of that in your steaks. It's what gives it its flavor. Here, I have one of our competitor steaks. I don't even know if I need to really speak on this when you're holding this product up next to ours. It's cut 0.75 inches. That thing is going to be absolutely roasted, unedible. This huge piece of seam fat that's running through it. There's no marbling. Not going to be a good steak. So if you're buying this for somebody you love, does this really say that you love them? Let's put that back where it belongs.
I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I had not seen that video.
Jordan, you've actually eaten a piece of your steak already, haven't you?
I did. I just ate one earlier. I literally just sent out a picture in the in our little group chat. If you want to throw that up there to see what it looks like in real life, it was fantastic. The hardest decision I had was, do I drink it with a red wine or a bourbon? But it didn't really matter. It was delicious.
The picture makes it look like you had both.
Well, I'm having both currently. I did end up going with the red wine because I felt like that was a little more sophisticated and would probably go better with it. But I'm now drinking the bourbon.
Oh, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Don't stop now.
I just realized something. Oh, look at that.
You need a monocle the next time you do it.
With
Jordan.
a big slab of butter.
Oh,
All right, let me read this thing real quick because Guy Swann just showed up. All right, so Casey Cattle Company, these guys understand the power of decentralization. They're going direct from producer to consumer. They get Bitcoin. They're on Nostr. They were on Twitter. They should be back on Twitter, I think. DM them anyway. Tell them where you heard about KCC on this pod. Say hi, get to know them. By the way, portions of their sales go towards helping vets in this pod specifically. So a couple of different promos. They got number one for those of you in our chat groups. We got a special discount code to buy beef from KCC using fiat. Contact us for the details. KCC is also offering certain discounts, 21% off a half beef paid in Bitcoin, as well as a bunch of other beef bundles. I think we're going to have the notes in the show notes on YouTube and on Twitter later. Finally, when checking out, mention that you heard of KCC through Bitcoin Veterans, and they're going to give you a gift package of Wagyu beef hot dogs for free.
Wow. Unbelievable. Kind of like
I just ate one and I'm already wanting some more.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. 2 days, guys, and it's here. We've got an amazing guest for you guys tonight. Stick around. Here's the intro. That led. There we go. I think it ended a little abruptly there for some reason. I have no idea. This is Bitcoin Veterans. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Shane Hazel. I've got with me Jordan, Mike, Alex, Gabe, and tonight we have a special guest, the one and only Guy Swann. Probably doesn't need any introduction into this audience. What's going on? Amazing. The guy that's read more about Bitcoin than anybody else out there, the host of Bitcoin Audible, amongst other series. AI,
Unchained.
Yeah, Unchained. Yeah,
I got you.
Coiner.
I'm working on that shit all day today.
Guy is in real life. I got to tell you, Guy was one of the first people in Bitcoin that I got to really kind of talk to and understand some things through, even some hardships. And I got to tell you, Guy put me back on track after some things, and I owe him quite a lot for doing that. But yeah, he's been in the space for a very long time. He's probably reading every book that you are listening to on Audible or anything else out there. If you don't know Guy Swann, go out there and check out his podcast. It is absolutely amazing. Not to mention, he's got some great personas and everything that I want to talk about a little bit tonight. But Guy, welcome to the show, my man.
What's up, Shane? How you doing, man? Good to be here.
All right.
He's just like,
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
We almost had to put you in the late category coming into the show.
It was close.
You were close.
So close.
You don't want to be in the breed love
with
category.
breed love on that one.
Oh no! What was his ass like? 30 minutes late? Had to be, right?
He was on breed love
He was
time, man.
cold
You know.
plunging. Sorry, I was in the ice. I didn't know what time it was.
He was doing halfway decent push-ups somewhere, probably.
Oh, damn. Shots fired.
Saying, man.
Lord.
why are you guys dunking on my
Oh,
boy
you
like
insulted
that?
his push-up.
What
Too
is-
far. Too
This
far.
is how you get return guests.
Yeah. Thanks for being a guest while we rip on our previous guests.
We
It's
all
okay, they're
want
not
to
here.
improve.
Real.
We
You're
all want
allowed
to
to talk
improve on
about people
something.
when
man.
it's behind their back, right?
Well, I know he's watching, man.
That's
He
the
catches every
rule.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. If you put
Oh,
your push-ups
shit.
on the internet, I'm going to critique them. All right, I'm here for you.
I thought I was the only one that did that. Just
It's
zero,
a service.
zero,
It is
zero.
a service that the internet criticizes the
Yeah,
content. It's to make it
exactly.
better. We're
It's all
providing a
about
very
improvement.
valuable service by
It's
sitting here and judging you.
Yeah. It seems like the internet is getting better, doesn't it? with all the judging that's going on, it's definitely
Better
getting
with you push-ups, breed love.
I can tell that Guy has watched our show before because he didn't like fawn over our intro because clearly he's seen it before. Unlike all the other guests who are like, "That's the greatest episode I've ever seen," and we instantly know you've never watched an episode. So I appreciate you tuning in, Guy. I appreciate that.
Of course, absolutely.
He's-
Oh my god, I had my hat. So when you got Shane, was it you that gave me the hat? Who gave me the hat?
It's probably
Black
Obi.
Moon.
Obi.
Yeah.
I totally forgot it. I was just thinking earlier today. I was like, oh shit, I gotta wear my hat, but it's upstairs. I'm
You didn't
sorry, I
even get
failed.
me a hat. I mean, for God's sakes.
You look at your banner. You got the huge version of the hat right behind you. Come on.
Just wrap it around your head, Shane.
Yeah, screw that producer. He sucks. Hey, well, that's enough fun. Secure the happiness. Let's get down to business here. We're gonna have a great show, everybody. Guy, what are you currently working on right now? How many books are you going through, and what are we in store for here in the very near future from Guy Swann?
Oh shit. I'm always working on something. In fact, I've gotten to a point where I don't even read physical books without recording them if there's not an audiobook, because I don't have the time to read physical stuff anymore unless it's basically a job, and so like I go through, like, it's the whole reason I started the show, right? I was wishing someone else would read these articles, because at the time I was a network technician, so I was on the road 8 hours a day. So I've stumbled upon a number of like really, really good books that don't have audio. And so I am slowly working my way through them to have audio. I'm going to contact the authors and see if it's okay. And maybe if they want to publish it, that would be great too. Or if I could just like put it out there, kind of depends on the book, I'm sure. A couple of them are from Mises. Like I've been working on the ethics of money production, which doesn't have an audiobook. And then also this one is the one that I've been trying to tackle recently, which is a massive book, but it's called The Code Breakers, and it's by David Kahn, and it is literally like the most comprehensive history of cryptography that there is. Like in the history of like basic ciphers and ciphering. Like it starts out and he tells the story really interesting too. Like it's not like just like a dry like bullet point list of, well, this happened then and then this happened here. He starts it out even with discussing the Enigma machine in World War II, and it's a very entertaining read, despite the fact there's like 1,200 pages.
Did you did you say you're reading it or you're trying to turn it into an Audible?
I'm reading it into my computer, so I am making an audiobook of it.
So you're making an Audible on a 1,200 page textbook.
Yes, basically. And at some point it'll be done. It's one of those things that's like really slow. Like I do 2 pages of this a day, maybe, like 3 or 4 on like a good day when I'm just like kind of bored and want specifically to tackle it. So it's slow going through those books because they are very gradual projects. And I got a couple official audiobooks that I'll probably be doing. I think I'm going to be doing Gradually Then Suddenly, Parker Lewis's like official book, because it's a little bit different than the actual article series that we did. But we haven't finalized it yet. We just like talked a bunch about it. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing that one. And I think there's a couple more that are kind of like sitting in the winds right now, to throw my way. And I'm just waiting and reading articles and doing the
what you're saying
right now.
What you're saying is you want us to give you more books to put into Audibles because you don't have enough yet, right?
Nope. I do not want that at all. Thank you.
So at 2 pages a day for a 1,200 page book, man, that's going to take you a minute.
Yeah. I mean, 2 is like my target. So there will be days where I'm just into the thing the part that I'm reading, and I'll clear 15. So it's like it won't take 3 years, even though it kind of should. At least I hope. I knock on wood. Good Lord.
So I guess people just seek you out now and are like, hey, can you read my book?
Yeah, basically.
So
in fact, I get more requests than I can. When that started happening, I was really excited because I just wanted to take every single one of them that came my way. And there are a number of projects. There's even like a number of fiction projects that I really wanted to tackle. But it just got to a point where I just ran out of time. I don't have the time to fit more stuff in. In fact, that's why this past year I've hired 4 people or whatever, is just because I realized I just wasn't going to be able to do any of the other things I wanted to do if I did not get as much off of my plate as possible. Like I was just pushing it to the max. Every time I added a project, it was specifically because I was procrastinating or having to drop some other thing that, I said I was going to do or I was trying to do. And then like 5 months go by and it's never fit into the schedule, So, I stretched myself very thin.
Yeah. This is why Guy is like building his own like AI machine so he can just like upload his brain and voice.
She's running right here.
Yeah. And just like, all right, pump some stuff out for me, AI.
And my voice too. That's going to be amazing. I mean, seriously, within the next 10 years, we're going to start having AI books from Guy that are actually not read by Guy, but in Guy's voice.
That'd be nice.
Oh yeah.
That'd be nice. I can't wait for the day I'll like semi-retire and then figure out what the hell I'm gonna do next.
How do you let down the people that you deem not worthy? Like, hey, listen, you're just not worthy of the Guy Swann voice. Is it a gentle letdown?
That's exactly what I said. I'm very diplomatic about it. It's mostly because literally every project, I would love to do every project.
Your shit sucks.
Man, this book looks crappy.
So that means that you should probably trademark your voice if you can for the AI, right?
I thought about it. So I coming from a context of like a technology perspective and then like the idea of copyright, like it's such a impossible thing to police, like when you look at like the landscape of stuff. And I will say it was odd the first time. Like somebody actually made a thing on Noster to read long form posts in my voice, and it's like it's like iffy. It's like almost there. It's almost there. I don't know exactly what model they used. Bark is one of the more popular open source ones. It's not the best. 11 Labs is really good, but they mess up. They're really good for the audio quality, for the fidelity, but they really mess up the emphasis a lot. Like for instance, I used 11 Labs for one of my Matrix memes, not the one that I did the impersonation of, but the shorter one with the Noster meme. And I literally had to brute force it to get him to pronounce things the way, like the emphasis that I wanted him to use. So I was like, because, you know, if you say, you have to like add a bunch of like odd, like punctuation or something to get like pauses in the right spot, or to get him to be like, to raise the end of a sentence rather than lower the end of it. And I think I had to generate like one of his lines. Did you just take both pills? Like that was an insanely difficult thing to get it to sound like that with that tool at the time, which now I know how to do it very, very easily, because you can actually just replace the voice and use your voice acting with it. So now it's no brainer. I'd have it done in seconds. But back then, a whole 10 months ago when I did this in ancient technology days in the AI space, I literally had to generate a line like 40 times or 50 times or whatever to get it to sound right. But when somebody did this on Noster, I was a little bit taken aback, because I didn't think I would have like a reaction to it, but I literally had like this kind of odd reaction to it. Like, that's my voice, you know, like somebody just, and in addition, it was like, you know, a bunch of people were zapping him or whatever. And it was like, but he's reading something in my voice with
it's your audible fingerprint.
It's right. And it was odd. It was odd because I didn't expect it. And I kind of knew that it's not something that I could police. It's not like, you know, and I feel like an asshole. It's like, take that shit down. Like, I'm not going to do that. So, but it was very, very, it was far more awkward than I had suspected seeing it in the real world, you know? And like, I did not say those words. It sounded like I said those words.
I think that's the important thing about like Noster and like verifying that this account is from this person, because then that's where the authenticity comes from, because we are entering this realm of like, how do you really know? And so like one thing I'm looking forward to doing is like in Nashville, when we have a lot of people together, is like meeting people face to face, like especially in like the Bitcoin veterans community, and being like, all right, I'm finally meeting you and shaking your hand, and like also let me verify that these things are really you, whether it's like your Signal chat or on Noster or whatever. Like, yeah, cool, because that's still really important. Like there's still this aspect of like this face to face thing coupled with the digital realm of like, how do you verify this is a person? But then you also couple that with like your reputation means something. Like if this verifiable thing really is you, then it's really important that you, like, if you screw something up, like if this guy does something with your voice and it's totally like beyond the pale, I feel like once people realize that, it's not going to end well. So he is kind of incentivized to like use that power for good, or not to abuse it, if that makes sense.
With great
right?
power comes great responsibility.
Damn.
No, but I completely on board with that too. I completely agree. And interestingly, I think in the digital sphere, meat space interaction, when you live in a time where you have no idea who is real in the digital space anymore, like we're increasingly like that. Pick a stoplight. I can get an LLM, like lava thing. I can get it to tell me if there's a stoplight. You know, like, I mean, I haven't gotten it to use a CAPTCHA, but there are literally models that just do CAPTCHAs. So the mechanisms by which we have to prove someone is human are increasingly not going to work. And it's going to be interesting that actually knowing someone and meeting and verifying a signature, essentially, which, scanning a QR code to follow somebody on Nostr, in meat space is actually going to increase in value quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because whereas we could make the assumption that who we were talking to is who we thought they were on the internet, I think we're entering a time where that was just kind of a transitional privilege that we are losing because we don't really have the technology is leaving that behind. That was a limitation, not something that we inherently had. So it's going to be weird.
In the different areas that this is going to affect is weird too. Like, so we have this Intel CyberSec OPSEC channel with Bitcoin veterans. We've got a bunch of former intelligence guys that are, they scan the interwebs and the airwaves for all the different things, and they kind of collate intel. And like one of the things, by the way, shout out to Randy, you know who you are, who does a lot of this work, and does the daily bulletin that we put out, talking about how like special operations guys are using deep fakes and drones to train for information warfare, literally on the battlefield. So what they're talking about is, like you're saying, take a sample of your voice, and making it do things. This Army psychological operations instructor can make you appear to say anything, order a pizza, call a doctor, so on and so forth. This thing called the ghost machine. What they're doing is they're basically using it to do stuff like programming it to duplicate a fictional Chinese enemy commander telling his troops to surrender on the battlefield. Like, this is stuff that like is really mind-blowing, and this is the direction some of this is going from a military / warfare application space.
Oh shit, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
you get a call over the radio with an order.
That reminds me of the Band of Brothers scene where you got the guy like acting like the commander, just cut the wire, and then like later on, like, who told you to cut the wire? Colonel so and so, he's on leave. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, if you guys have seen the latest Mission Impossible, this is actually in it. Like, that's part of it, because like the runaway
cool.
artificial intelligence actually like intercepts like the comms between like whatever Ethan Hunt and his team, and it sounds like his team giving him directions on where to run, and then it directs him right to the guy that is going to try and kill him.
Boy, spoiler alert! If you haven't seen it yet,
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Wow,
Mike.
that movie's ruined.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Yep.
But think about the implications that this also has on just the level of civil peace versus unrest that we have across the country. If someone were to use AI to take over main communications platforms, stream a video of a national leader, whoever that may be, of them saying, "Okay, yeah, all hell is breaking loose. We've got freaking zombies in the streets, or Nazis running around killing everybody, or something." All hell would break loose instantly. And we know this. I mean, look back at freaking Orson Welles with War of the Worlds, what he did with a radio show back in the day.
What if you combined it with a high altitude EMP strike?
Well,
I mean, you've got total chaos.
You got total chaos.
Dude, it's good thing we stayed out of the dark land today and Doomville, for God's sakes.
So anyway, Guy, now that you're here, tell us how we can avoid that. Let's go.
Oh shit. Be aware of it. Like actually, legit. I have you have a safe word or whatever, like a confirmation word or something is. Like I actually watched a video not too long ago, and in fact, I got a call just the other day. I posted about it on Twitter, and I get so many scam calls, but I'm now getting AI scam calls.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten your relative or your wife is in the hospital or you're being kidnapped kind of thing. Send me money, but that has started in earnest. And I had somebody or there was a video of somebody who was breaking it down. I think it was like just a TikTok video. It was just like, dude, this shit just happened. And they said that it was their mother, and she needed money really quickly and it needed to send it over Cash App or something like that. And he was like, what, why? He ended up like there was something odd about the situation, like in trying to confirm something. And he ended up asking questions like, I don't understand. What is happening here? And they just kept pressure. And she's like, and he's like, what is your middle name? And she says, what? I don't have time for this. And he says, what is your middle name? And then he ended up hanging up, and calling his actual mom. Said, but it sounded exactly like her. And so really one of the things to do is have something like that. Like, what's your middle name? Or like have something, like just know that that's going to happen, that could happen. And that if you were listening to somebody or even watching somebody in a digital environment where you were on the phone with them, you are doing a video call with them or whatever it is, confirm, like double check. And especially like even before all of this, we had a couple people in our Bitcoin meetup who got scammed because we're like a really tight crew, and we very often will front somebody some Bitcoin or do a peer-to-peer trade or something. Like we just been around each other. We know each other for a really long time. And somebody created a fake account that looked like somebody who was a good friend and that we've worked with and done stuff with in the past in the room, and started DMing everybody of, I got somebody who's trying to buy some Bitcoin. They want to pay 5% over spot, blah, blah, blah. And, I just need this amount. And a couple people actually took him up on it. And I almost did. I probably would have done some secondary confirmation of like address. I probably would have texted him because I have his actual number rather than being in Telegram. I think I would have run into one of my normal stops for how I go about my process. But today it'd be hairy if I was only using kind of my defense mechanisms from 2 years ago, just because of AI. Yeah, it's gonna be very prevalent. I really think the only reason we don't get hit with it constantly is because generally most people just aren't absolute pieces of shit. The default is to not cause problems, luckily, but we're also in a really weird environment where as political instability grows, people are going to feel like it doesn't matter. They're going to feel justified in causing all kinds of hell because everybody else did this to me. Like when people feel hopeless and increasingly nihilist, and then they don't have any other options, you blame the world for lack of anything else to point at, and then you just hurt other people. So know what tools you're up against, because it's probably not going to be a lot of fun.
I'm going to take a second real quick. We got a little bit of administrative. I'm going to remove and then add guy back to see if
smart.
Well, now we just got a black screen.
The AI took over.
Yeah, Guy, just so you're aware, there's a little bit of technical difficulty on your video over there, but no worries. We can still hear you.
Can we?
1 second.
There we go. We can't. Yeah, we're getting the behind the scenes view.
He's back in the dry basement.
That's my bullshit. Wait, I can't.
Everybody, quick, analyze what's on
bullshit. There we go.
Well, Guy's messing with his setup here.
Now we see. I thought those were real books. Now I see.
Hold on. Is that camera on remote control or something?
Gimbal?
Yeah, it's a gimbal.
Dang.
In fact, actually, this is cool. This actually has like a tiny AI model in the camera for identifying the people. I mean, they say it's AI. It's just normal machine learning things to identify like the person in the frame. And so I can actually get it to track me, and like I can lean back and forth or whatever, and it will track me. I don't want to do it right now because it's annoying.
Don't stress it
out. You've done enough.
That'd be really good for like OnlyFans models, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is great. Alex, that'd be really good for OnlyFans models. I hate it when they go out of frame.
Oh,
So
man.
the takeaway the takeaway that I had from the previous conversation was establish code words with your family members. Right?
Yeah, we started doing this back in the 80s.
Same.
I think I don't know, everybody that saw that one kid who got kidnapped, right? Like if your parents loved you, maybe they came up with some code words like, "Hey, don't ever go with anybody unless they know the secret code word," right? And analog's going to be good for some things, right? This is one of those places where if you got older parents especially around, talk to them about this and be like, "Hey, this is something that's really going on, especially if they're in this space." And let them know, hey, listen, we got a code word, and if there's anything that's going on that seems a little bit weird, challenge it. Come up with a challenge word, and you better have a good answer for it,
or multiple challenge words, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You do that too. We like to keep it simple in the Hazel household. One word.
Look, Shane, if anyone tries to take you, the code word is crayon. Okay, we know you can remember that.
Crayola.
There goes another spoiler.
Cranberry juice.
Damn. It is 7:30, so we're at the bottom of the first hour here, and just wanted to say, hey, we didn't do it in the beginning. This is Bitcoin Veterans. Guy Swann is our esteemed guest tonight, and we do this because we are trying to put people back on the mission. This is a space not only for veterans, space for anybody who's active duty adjacent, whatever. If you just supported this community, we are not exclusive to veterans. We are trying to pull as many people in as possible that are action oriented, that have maybe gone down a nihilistic path and are looking for some purpose, some real mission. So when we say get on the mission here, it is the Bitcoin mission. It is about positive incentive. It is about resilience. It is about going out there and making a better version of yourself first and foremost, and then helping to affect your community in that same change. So welcome to Bitcoin Veterans, everybody. Like I said, we got Guy Swann here tonight. He's making some incredible statements. I have a quick question for you about some of the things that you do as a guy that loves the voice work and everything. When you're channeling your inner actor and for voices for all the different people that you will read quotes from in the past, who is your favorite to impersonate, and why?
Favorite in the context of like
what's
somebody in the Bitcoin space?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, what's your favorite voice to do when I imagine you've got at least one or two that when you're reading, you're like, man, I imagine this guy in history sounded like this, and so I'm going to do this voice.
You have archetypes. Like pull out.
I'll tell you, just in general, I have a really hard time with the accents, but I really enjoy trying to get them right. Like it's a fun challenge for me. Yeah. Especially somebody with came from a Southern background. But I had an absolute blast, and I feel like I did pretty good with American HODL and the American HODL Dieter Bob debate.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure.
That was a good one.
That was a great
for everybody
one.
that didn't hear it, why don't you give them a little?
Oh shit. Okay, well, wait a second.
Put him on the
No
spot.
pressure.
American HODL. Bro, you're like 5'3", bro. You just fuck on Peter's ball. You just.
That was
Bro,
such
is this
a
all
good
you
one.
got? Is this all you got, man?
You're just a thirsty bitch, dude.
You're just a
Thirsty Oh shit! Mike's tapped into your AI algo apparently. Damn, that was good.
I remember that clip vividly when he put it out on
that
Twitter.
was a good one. That was
hilarious,
thirsty bitch.
That was worth the price.
And then
Guy Factory bribed me into that. I started the which I ended up just not being able to manage. It just kind of like died on the website. I would still love this. I kind of want to rebuild a new one with Noster actually. But a vote mechanism where I had like all the things that I was planning on or thinking of reading on the show, in just like kind of a big list, and then you could zap it to, and this was early on before zaps were really a thing. We had to kind of like hack together a really odd version of it. That you could throw sats at it to vote it up to the top. And, you know, it's a recording. Like, it's a Twitter Spaces recording. It's in audio already. And then, what's his face? Oh, God, I can't remember the guy's name. I'm going to feel really bad. But he did a transcription. Like, he typed out a whole transcription of the recording. And then I was reading the transcription of the recording. And what was hilarious about it is, like, I started it, and my first thought was, and the meme crew was just like constantly like, God, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I was like, this is stupid, I'm not gonna do this. And then finally I broke down and like I put it on the vote thing. I was like, all right, we'll see. And then those assholes like just kept throwing like 50,000 sats, 70,000 sats at it. So it was just like blasting up to the top of the thing. And then every time somebody put something else on top of it, they just kept throwing sats at it until I just had no choice. And my original thinking I was going into it is like, I'm going to listen to the recording and try to do the recording. But then I was like, no. I'm not
interpretation time.
Yeah, don't
reading
poison the well.
The transcription. I need to give my interpretation of this situation in the show. And that was an hour and a half of nonsense.
Was it you or the Meme Factory guys that put it with the South Park video?
I did not do that. They did that for the South Park video.
Whoever took that and then put it with the South Park video, it just clean, like it made it perfect.
You know, 20 years from now, when one Satoshi is worth $1, those guys are going to be telling stories around campfires and be like, remember when I spent $75,000 to get Swann to read this stupid thing?
To say thirsty bitch on Bitcoin Audible.
I never would have listened to the actual spaces of that. And I'm sure that more people have listened to your version of it than like the real version of it.
I hope so.
Amazing.
I hope so. I feel like mine really captures the spirit better than the actual thing.
Yeah, I feel like it probably did. That's awesome.
It's too damn funny.
Oh man. Boy,
that was a fun voice out, like
challenge.
A show, and we're all like, yes, we know exactly which one guy is talking about. I started like my Bitcoin journey, like listening to you and learning about Bitcoin through you. In fact, like I remember
no shit. Hell yeah, man.
And this was like a cool thing. Like I remember when I first heard about the Lightning Network, all I thought to do was like, I'm going to try. I don't know if I DM'd or just said it in like the comments. I was like, I'm going to reach out to Guy. Like, hey, do you have any information on like learning about the Lightning Network? And you got back to me like almost immediately. And we're like, yeah, go to my website, just search for Lightning Network, blah, blah, blah. So I just spent like the next day listening to like 3 episodes you had on how the Lightning Network worked and all this. And that was like, that was really cool. Like, I mean, I really can't talk you up enough to people if you want to learn about something, like go to his website, like just search for it. And he's going to start talking. He's probably had multiple episodes about it, whether it's a guy's take, just him giving him your own take on it, or you reading an article about it. And I think we're coming up on like the 1 year mark of you starting AI Unchained, aren't we? It was like June, maybe last year that you started it.
We might be actually,
because I remember watching or listening to the first couple episodes of it, and I feel like it was right before Bitcoin 2023 or right around that time. Because it was right before we started the show. And yeah, it's cool that you've gone down that rabbit hole, and we've had this whole conversation about that.
It was May.
Woo!
Yep.
Look at that.
So we'll be at a year in just a minute. Like
that's
we're
pretty
just a couple
cool.
days away, actually. Hell yeah. Damn. That's crazy. It's wild that I've been doing it that long. I didn't even realize it. Time flies.
So since you've been doing it
Time
this
does fly.
long, since you've been doing it this long, guy, I got a question for you. And, well, two questions actually, because that's how I like to do things.
Double tap.
What kicked off all the interest for you to actually make a whole like sub series on artificial intelligence? B, are you a doomer on artificial intelligence? Are you optimistic or are you neutral?
So essentially AI started just taking up a lot of my time. And anything that I just kind of get stuck in, I kind of come to a point that, you know, if I have a production company and I'm producing media, I need to just be producing media about the thing that I'm fascinated in at the moment. And when Gen AI came out, when generative AI and ChatGPT and Stable Diffusion and all of this stuff dropped, that was my exposure to it really for the first time. And I was just like, holy shit. And I immediately saw all the applications, and I went looking for like tools, how to use it and all this stuff. And it was a mess. I mean, it was worse. It was as bad or worse than crypto. Like, it was just so much bullshit. Everything suddenly had AI in it. And I was pretty sure none of those products were any different than they were last year. And that just was kind of like mind boggling. And I was in this incredibly difficult task of like, oh shit. It made me appreciate too how difficult it is to learn something honest or learn something useful about Bitcoin. Because when, like, I have such a big network in Bitcoin now, like I know who to listen to, I know who to follow and who to watch or whose opinion to get on something and I know who the contrarian is going to be, so I can go read that too. And I don't think it quite hit me until I had to solve that problem with AI, how insanely valuable that network was. Because I had no idea where to start. And so I just kind of started following people, and then somebody would spout off some nonsense, but then somebody would say something that kind of sounded right. And I start going down that rabbit hole. And then, I waste days to find out that it was a scam or it was just BS. And building that network was insanely slow. I mean, I still feel like it's a year in, it's not even close to something foundational. It's a rough draft at best. So in trying to sort all that out, I was like, this has got to be this fucking hard for everybody else, so it just made sense to me to make a show about the tools I was using that turned out to be useful, the stuff I was digging into, because I read a handful of pieces, like digging into the depths of like, what the hell is an LLM? What does it actually do? Is like just some like black box. How the hell do you make one of these things? So kind of getting all the dirty details so that we can, because some people, like, they talk about like something's trained on, like ChatGPT's trained on the whole internet. Like, that's not even slightly true, but it's like a very common thing that you hear.
Yeah.
And like, in fact, parsing out the data and formatting the data to train one of these things is like really difficult. Like, it's not just like you can just give it a bunch of notes. If you give it a bunch of notes and just train it on a bunch of notes, and then you type anything, it's just going to want to type out a whole note about some random topic, around, like, you have to give it questions and answers in order to create a question and answer environment or output. So you have to be able to turn all of the information that you have into high quality questions and answers to train it on. So there's just like a ton of different pieces that go into it. And when it was taking me 2 days out of the week, and it almost felt like it was taking away from Bitcoin Audible, like I wasn't able to do Bitcoin stuff to do it, I was like, this has to be a show, or I'm gonna have a problem, because it's just eating up a lot of my time. So that's really kind of what created it. Seemed like a big problem, and if I was going to be wasting that much time on it, it better be something useful to me as well.
Yeah. Okay. So are you like, just for the last part, are you a doomer or are you optimist, or are you just like flat neutral, just watching and observing?
No, I was originally a observer, but I'm an optimist now. I there's gonna be a lot of transition, and it's gonna be there are a lot of big risks, but I think some of them specifically are a little bit overblown. And where I think the biggest risk is just what's the government going to use to build with this thing? Because there are shitty people in the world who just want to use every tool that comes across their desk to figure out how to kill somebody else more efficiently.
Yeah.
And they will build stuff. They are building stuff. But on just looking at it broadly, I've been shocked at how I don't really like this word, but how democratizing the technology actually can be. And that it's actually going to be far more distributed than I had originally thought. Like I kind of took the Web 2 outcome and stamped it. And I think a lot of people are doing this. They're like, what are the problems of Web 2? And then they're just like kind of pasting it onto AI. Is it, oh, we're going to have these huge centralized platforms. Everybody going to use the same thing. It's going to be like this massive panopticon of all this stuff. And for a long time, even everybody was like, you can't even run these things without hundreds of thousands of GPUs. Like nobody's going to have access to any of this shit. And that was pretty scary out the gate to me. I was like, because you could see how unbelievably useful this is. We are all going to be trapped in those platforms if they are the only ones who can run them. But then literally, I think it was the first llama that got leaked? Because I don't think it was open source originally. I think it actually got leaked. Anyway, one of the rather large models at the time made it out in the open, and people started working with it, retooling it, figuring out how it is that they can actually make use of it. And in like no time at all, people were figuring out how to run these things on potatoes. And they, developed the quantization modeling or a method, and making these things smaller, and which was just fascinating to watch because it happened in a matter of weeks. Like it was so fast that we went from this can only be run in a server farm to like, oh wait, no, here's one that you can download on your Mac, right? Like on your just normal computer. Because of that, there was also a leaked memo. In fact, this was the first read that I did on the AI show, on AI Unchained, with it was titled "We Have No Moat, and Neither Does OpenAI," and it was an internal memo from a Google executive, and it was leaked, and he basically started detailing out the way the technology was moving, and basically was saying that the gates around these things, like the walls around this technology, the network effect that we think of with platforms and Amazon and Facebook and like all of these things, the lock-in effect doesn't exist in AI. Like we like already Hugging Face, the quintessential place for hosting your model, kind of the GitHub of AI models, has over 1 million.
Wow.
1 million different models now. That happened like last week. They broke that number.
Wow.
And we are moving into an age of commoditized intelligence. And I was shocked how quickly, the more I dug into it, it looked like my hope was actually the trend of the technology. And I think we're going to have self-hosted, self-running AI that is insanely useful and insanely valuable, that is essentially personalized to us and private because we can host it ourselves. In fact, most of it doesn't even make sense to not host yourself in a lot of the different contexts, because the risk and trade-off of not doing that is increasingly enormous.
Okay.
But yeah.
So one question I have about this is that, like, you have to train these things, right? You train them by feeding them data. And like in my layman's understanding of it, like the bigger data sets that you have, the smarter these things can be. So you have organizations like, you know, for example, Tesla with their self-driving car thing. Like I was reading this thing where it said that Tesla has way more data to feed to their AI about how to do artificial intelligence driving than anybody else. So they're way ahead of the pack, right? So how does that compare? Like if we have these little ones that we're using, individual ones that we're self-hosting, we're self-training, we're using them on our own, how does that compete with these other things that are being fed massive amounts of data? I'm assuming. Is that even a thing? Like, is that something we have to worry about?
So partly it depends on the type of data that you're working with, on the kind of limitations for how accessible it is. But I think one of the biggest problems in training and having open source models to compete is, how do you crowdsource information? And how do you crowdsource high quality information? And so one of the things you pointed out is, and this was largely the assumption for a while, is that if you have more data, your LLM is smarter, right? You have
Right.
smarter AI. That's not really the case. It is up to a point. It's kind of like graphics on a video game or something, right? Like for a whole series of generations, everybody just wanted better graphics. Then graphics got to a point where nobody gave a shit anymore. Well, it's kind of that same way in a sense with LLMs, where you get to a point where, because it's essentially what you get in the weight of a model is the average of what you give it. So if you just collect more data, you might actually end up with a lot more noise.
Right.
It depends very heavily on the quality of your data. So if you just train it on a whole bunch more stuff, you could make a model that's twice as big and half as good.
Got it. Yeah. So basically you could do like 100x the data, but if it's dumb data, you're gonna have a dumb.
You can have a dumb AI. And a lot of people, you know, they talk about like, oh, you could have an AI train AI or train itself and stuff. That's not quite how it works. It's a little bit like inbreeding. You know, because its own weights are creating the information, when it creates that information and then tries to rebalance the weights, it necessarily degrades the quality of everything else in order to increase the apparent quality of its output. So it was literally the AI equivalent of inbreeding. Like it will just kind of keep cannibalizing its own weights. It's
like it's biased, right? Like whatever it thinks is a priority, it biases against whatever other stuff might actually be higher quality data, but it's too dumb to know that.
Essentially, without human judgment, it doesn't really have a way to know good from bad.
Yeah, because it can't reflect. Right.
It is human judgment that knows. And in fact, it's because human judgment is then judging what it because we have
it's operating on the rules that humans placed upon it, and so it can't figure out when those rules didn't make sense. Whereas like your normal human, like, you know, given like the veteran aspect of it, like you get a shitty order from a superior, you're not like, well, he's learned more than me, so I'm just gonna. You're like, no, that just sounds stupid from common sense because I have my own train of thought.
Right. And not only that, humans have this bizarre superpower where many of us get together and we hash through things and we critique things and we basically trash each other's ideas. Right. And the best rises to the top. And then once the signal goes out that this is the best idea, the rest of the humans kind of adopt it and they're like, okay, that makes sense. Right. So that's a very powerful thing, right?
Process of interaction, conflict, and kind of beating an idea against reality is, and then obviously the judgment of a human in the context of a life where time is called something. You know, like when I spend an hour doing something, I want it to produce a positive result, and I want to have something related to my life. Like I have goals. And in that context, we are the only ones that can actually transmit value onto the thing, onto what the output is. simply because value is a product of mortality. Like it only exists because we have limits. And so we have to decide between things. And because of that, the computer will only ever have values that we give it.
Yep.
The computer doesn't have that context. So it's essentially, a lot of people think that, the AI, we're going to have AGI and it's going to take over the world and kill everybody. No. AI is going to be something you could maybe think about it like a new species from the context of like an analogy, is that this is a thing that does have its own thoughts. It generates, it does have a degree of creativity. It is combining ideas that may necessarily have never even been combined before, but it is a form of intelligence, but it's more of a form of life, kind of like a virus or a piece of computer software. And I don't mean that in the sense that like a virus is like it's awful and we should be scared of it like a virus, but in the sense that it's like a rudimentary life form, but it only exists in symbiosis with us. Like it dies if it tries to kill us.
I would say it's more of like a mimicry of life or intelligence rather than being actual intelligence or life.
Don't take the analogy too far. Don't take the analogy too far, but just in the context that it's something that we interact with. It's almost like a way of creating a pseudo conflict, and in doing so, like conflict is what makes people better. What challenges us and allows us to kind of sort the signal from the noise. It's only when we're poked at the edges that we start to really define what an idea is. And in that sense, this is a way to actually create dialogue with something that is actually a feedback from tons of other people's judgments, from tons of other people's thoughts, which is a really powerful thing that we can kind of crystallize or compress a series of patterns and information and knowledge potentially indefinitely into the future. Like it's going to accelerate everything in such a ridiculous way.
It seems like all this like AI stuff is really, it's almost like the printing press where like at first it came out and it was going to everyone knew, like the powers that be knew it was going to like revolutionize things. But the flip side of it is that like back then with the printing press, the powers that be wanted to like suppress it because they were like, no, this is going to take our power away. The powers that be now think it's going to be something that they can capitalize on. But because of that, and because they try to tweak it, like I remember thinking when like ChatGPT came out and there was all these articles about like, oh, you can't get it to say this because that's like, it's got this woke programming programmed into it. And I remember thinking, well, that's just going to be the death of it because they're trying to control it within this thing. And that's not going to happen. It's going to have its own free will. And from your description, it seems like by them trying to do that, information wanted to be free. And it went down this route of like, oh, you're going to try to control me? Fuck you. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then, like you said, it democratized it in a sense of like, everyone's going to do their own thing with it. And now it's got like a life of its own, which is kind of what happened with the printing press. When they tried to crack down on it, people just wrote books about how to make a printing press.
Yeah. I had Alex Vetsky on the show, actually. The first time I had him on the show, it was great because the whole idea of trying to prevent an LLM from offending people, like the number of times like I like to write like little stories and we'll come up with stuff, or even like if I'm making like a tweet or something, I'm trying to figure out how to word something. I used one of the first things I did with ChatGPT was I used it as kind of a contextual thesaurus. Is it like, what's a phrase or an idiom or something that means this kind of thing? Because you can't really, you can't have a semantic dictionary in that sense, like where you want something similar to it, but that's something that vector embeddings, the kind of the source of the LLMs and how they do the math, is actually phenomenally good at. Like I used the example actually in the episode that I just recorded in trying to explain what a vector search was, is that when you take the data, you're literally like putting it on a graph. When you vectorize it, it just points it in a certain direction. It just kind of sets arbitrary numbers, well, based on like their model, like what they have, to some subset of data. So think about it in the context of a king and queen, or a concrete or something, is that you can obviously see that semantically king and queen have a context where they might be in the same. So when that data is actually vectorized, because what it does is it points them in a direction that's related to every other word in the sentence. Like it's just constantly doing probability on like the earlier word versus the later word versus what's the subject versus the last word, and it's creating all of these vectors. So in the context of like, if I'm searching for like, okay, there was a story that happened, and I think it was like the King of England was in a cafe and he called somebody stupid. Well, in the vector search, because semantically king and queen are near each other, the search for if there was actually an article of the Queen of England being in a Waffle House and calling somebody a knob, that actually would come up as very near to that search, whereas none of the ways that we currently search with indexing or whatnot would actually come up with that. So that was actually like one of the first things that I realized it was really, really useful at. But the thing is that like, if you neuter it from like being offensive, what you actually do is you create a bias. Like their whole effort of trying to be unbiased is creating like a really weird contradictory bias. Like you can't train something to be unoffensive. People are offended by everything. You don't give offense, you take offense. You know? And in that sense, that open source actually has an advantage in that. As the models get better and better, an uncensored model is just going to produce better results.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And
because otherwise, like first of all, these things don't have intuition, right? Which is the difference really between humans and these kind of models. Mostly, like it reminds me of like Bitcoin is Venice, where they're talking about deriving a conclusion based on a bunch of data versus heuristic, like just going by your gut, right? So the example that they use in Bitcoin is Venice is that like a dog, if you throw a frisbee, right, the dog just runs to where it thinks the frisbee is going to be. It jumps up in the air, it catches the frisbee in its mouth. Like the same thing with like an outfielder in baseball, right? The outfielder just eyeballs the baseball and he's like, okay, I think it's going to land right here. He moves to that position and he catches the baseball. So that's all done like internally, instinctively, heuristically, right? Like theoretically, you could do all these different mathematical calculations, determining the vector and the speed and all this other kind of bullshit, and crunch all the math and then figure out where the ball is going to land. But a human can just be like, oh, I think it's going to be here. Right.
Yeah.
It's just a massive difference there. Do you have
what I like to
thoughts
think about it? What I like to think is, for some people who like will talk to the LLMs, you're like, oh my God, it's intelligent, it's alive. I always just kind of get like, okay, man, like to think that first, if you go to like the playground thing, they'll actually show you what the probability of each individual word is. And so like when you start typing something in and then you like change your little noise ratio for how much variance in the probability do you want there to be, you can actually look at any group of words and see the math that it's doing. It's just doing an ungodly amount of computation about like, if there's, using the king and queen as an example, it says my favorite person in the royal family is, well, there's a high probability that it's either king, queen, prince, or princess. Like there's a it's very unlikely to be dog at the end of that sentence. And unless you train it on really shitty data and then you have a really dumb LLM. But in doing so, you realize that it is purely a model for language, but humans aren't a language model. Like our brain is not a language model. We do create a model for language, but like I don't create concepts in my head out of arbitrary relationships to words. A child, and anybody who's has a 1-year-old child knows they understand things well before they can explain them.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Like they
they
making
make their own words up too.
Yeah.
We have models for what we see a ball do when it does. What we see a ball does when it bounces. Like we start creating models for how things act in gravity. That's why tricks work, is because they make it appear as if the model is broken. And we have a model that literally screams at us and says, that shit is not right. That is wrong. I built a model for this, and that thing is not supposed to behave like that. And you know, if you put something in front of it and you take it away, the shit's supposed to still be there. And that's like a different model, right? Like you have models for how we react, and it's because we have all of these input sensors. We have eyes, we have ears, we can hear, we can smell, taste, like all of these different things, and we build millions of models in our minds. Language is our main communication model. Well, aside from body language. But we have social models. We have, you know, I mean, the number of things that are unspoken that we understand, that we know, concepts that we grasp. What these models are literally the attempt to pull out those patterns. We can make models for physics. We can make models for language. We can make models for a book or for a poem or for code. All of these things. But what a human is a model generating machine that stores them. So we are a model generator. We have thousands, maybe millions of models in our heads, depending on where you want to put them in the hierarchy, probably. And we try to burn pathways in our brain as we react and experience the world that allow us to know and anticipate what the outcome of an event is. When all of our sensory inputs tell us 90 different things, we get to predict what the next 10 are. And we literally wouldn't be able to walk. We just run into doors all the time if we could not accomplish that task. So because of that, like we are an organism that has created a digital environment for ourselves that creates models constantly. I mean, you give somebody a new game. What do? The process of learning, that frustration, that when you're like, you're looking at the game, like, how does this work? And they're trying to explain all the pieces of it. You're building a model. You're trying to figure out what the interactions of that game are, what the limits are. Like that is exactly what you were doing right there. And we have figured out how to kind of crystallize that into a digital system. That's kind of crazy.
Well, and like it's awesome that we've gone down this like AI rabbit hole. Like this is
We
a
talk about
fantastic
Bitcoin
conversation. But no, yeah, literally to tie it into Bitcoin, like with what you just said, that is the problem that a lot of people have, is they have their model of the world is based on this other system. And Bitcoiners, generally speaking, have kind of seen through that, and they've broken the model, and they see that, like, you know, when you play the trick, we see what the trick is, and we understand we're just thinking differently. We've broken that old model, and we're thinking of a new way of looking at things, and it really makes like everything you just described really kind of ties it all together. Of like, this is what makes Bitcoiners different, and why a lot of normie people will look at us weird or think we're idiots or whatever. It's like, no, we've just kind of broken the model of seeing things the way they've always been. We have collected more information, and it's the higher quality information. It's a lot of the fiat system is just collecting so much information, but it's all useless. And we have learned to look for the signal amongst the noise. And that's, I think, why a lot of Bitcoiners it's not just getting it's why we have a whole conversation about AI for over an hour. And it's like this in-depth conversation about artificial intelligence, because we all just kind of look at the world differently, and it opens up your viewpoint to so many other things in the world.
Yeah. You realize how the kind of the normie mental model of the world is really kind of pushed on you, and it's drastically oversimplified, and then kind of in a sense overcomplicated too. Like it's both contradictory and like kind of like this is the way it is, and it kind of misses like some really fundamental things. And this is why it's so hard to explain Bitcoin to people, is because Bitcoin, when you understand like money as a submodel, so like there are so many things like principles, like how you should behave, how you should think about somebody's interaction with someone else. They're actually dependent on a different model. Is like you have like kind of a foundational model, and then you build micro models on top of it. And that's why I think it's so world shattering when, and why so many people are so viciously antagonistic toward trying to being able to make sense of Bitcoin, is because it literally, it fucks with their base model. Like it really, it makes it doesn't, it's incongruous. You know, the weights break if you try to shove Bitcoin into it. So the base model that they have for seeing the world, and what they think is that it's going to collapse all of the models that they have built on top of it. And they've made a massive investment building thousands of models on top of this base model. Most of them, a lot of them still apply, but yeah, a lot of them break too. That's why they call it like, you know, I died and I was reborn. Like, and why enlightenment is considered a spiritual thing is because it really does feel like you died. Like everything that I thought was real, all of my models for how I should think about who was the good guy and who was the bad guy. I mean, think about what that does to your identity, to have it, to realize that you were wrong about that.
It's like the guy from the Matrix, you know, when he's sitting there with freaking with Agent Smith and he's eating the steak and he's like, I know this steak is not real, but I don't care. Put me back in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Just don't want to believe it.
I really don't want this pain anymore.
Yep. And it does, man. It tears people's worlds down, and it makes you have to look at everything differently. And one of the biggest differences that I think we can identify between the way that humans are making decisions and the way that AI makes decisions is AI doesn't take into consideration how it's going to make somebody else feel. Okay. I mean, if anybody's in a relationship and you have a significant other, when you're making a big decision, you're going to think, okay, how are they going to feel about this? How's this going to impact other people? And we're also tribal people. We're community-based entities. And we're going to think about, okay, whether it's consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, we're going to be considering in some degree or another, how is this going to impact the culture and the community in which I live? AI is not going to do that. Now, they can try to imitate it, and it could be programmed and trained, I suppose, to try to mimic that type of behavior. But it can't really think about, how's this going to make this person feel over here when that takes place. Something that I wanted to touch on real quick is that when people are just getting new to Bitcoin and they're starting to learn things, I like to point them over to your basics series on the podcast on Audible.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
And it's just awesome. I mean, it starts, nuts and bolts foundation, and it builds from there, and it's just outstanding. So first of all, thank you for bringing that to us. Second of all, while we're talking about good information, pure signal, for somebody who wants to learn a little bit more about AI, what would you recommend be like a good starting point for a couple of books or podcasts, or where could they get some good content? Besides your podcast, of course.
Besides AI Unchained.
Yes.
I honestly, to get just kind of the big picture view of why it's important, the first episode I did with Jeff Booth is a phenomenal introduction, I think, because it'll probably get you jazzed about it. But I still haven't found a good book yet. I've been kind of digging into options. If you want to go the development route, kind of like building stuff, like I guess it's not introductory, but it's a really great podcast if you're a developer. Latent Space is one of the good AI podcasts I found. The article I read on building an LLM, or a gentle introduction to LLMs. I mean, yeah, you can actually go to the article too. You don't have to listen to the podcast, but the article has like a ton of links and stuff to kind of explore, to go deeper down into each of the pieces. And then if you want to do like Gen AI stuff, like image generation, like that's just generally like a more fun way to get started as opposed to like learning something technical. There's a couple of really good accounts on YouTube that I follow. What are the Gen AI stuff? Hold on one second. I've got some
that stuff is
really
wild,
fun ones that do like VFX. Corridor Digital isn't specifically about AI, but they use a lot of AI tools and they like review a bunch of them sometimes. So that one's actually good, and they're just freaking really entertaining. I have a film background, so I love the Corridor Digital stuff. Where is this freaking
Look, if you want to learn about AI stuff, just go to
I'll get some
AI
links.
Unchained and just start watching from the beginning.
There you go.
It's a great show.
There you go.
That's what I'm
No, I'll actually get some links together because there's a couple of really good YouTube accounts that I would definitely recommend and that have really entertaining stuff and will just like show you. You want to, put Elizabeth Warren's face in this video so that to make a meme construction. AI is like primo for it's gonna change the world of memes, and I can't wait for it.
Let me throw this out for the people watching and listening right now. Guy's going to get us a list of things to go check out. Reach out to us, get connected in our group chats. Like the show is just like the tip of the iceberg of what all Bitcoin veterans is doing. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So please, I urge you, this isn't just like I want to get more followers. I want to get you connected to a larger group that's going on behind the scenes. So please reach out, get connected with us. We have tons of resources behind the scenes that we don't even have time to talk about on the show. Reach out to us, get connected. We'll continue this conversation with Guy after the show, and we'll get these links and we'll share them with you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, sorry for taking us down another rabbit hole. And that was another one of my questions, but we'll talk about that later. I want to know how the AI rabbit hole compares to the Bitcoin rabbit hole for you. But I've heard I talked about some of your basics episodes, and anybody that's listened to your podcast, which is probably just about everybody here, has experienced you on maybe some of your a rant. Maybe where you're very passioned about some things.
What?
And I believe that
I don't do that.
Maybe a little bit, but I've tended to notice that a lot of those things you're passionate about, that many of those in the Bitcoin veterans community are passionate about as well. And having said that, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the latest news with Samurai that just came out.
Hey, you knew it was going to come up.
You don't have to hold back. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, first,
we're not afraid to get kicked off.
There's actually something I wanted to add to your previous comment, talking about how the AI won't have like emotions and won't have like social context or whatnot. There's actually something really, really cool about that, is that AI will tend, especially if you're talking about like a personal AI and something that's been like watching your environment, or like, because the dream is to have an AI that's watching and listening to everything that I say, and then doing local processing and giving me notes on the ideas that I came up with, the to-dos that I had planned on, telling me which projects are, probably ones to tackle soon, and which ones are, dude, shut up. You're not going to, that's 10 times the project you think it is. So you better be willing to give up everything else in your life in order to make it. Like that sort of thing. But the ability to reflect to an AI that does not have or isn't really concerned with emotional awareness is actually a really good thing in a lot of contexts. Is, when somebody wants to blame, it's like, why is this stupid thing? I wasn't able to get anything done and everybody got in my way and nobody did it. And the AI is like, well, no, you spent 6 hours on Twitter today. Like the AI isn't going to be concerned that that's going to piss you off, and then you can't really get mad at the AI because there's no social arrangement. Like if it's your friend or your wife, you want to get mad at him. He's like, well, I didn't do it. I'm in, like you actually want to turn it into a social competition with them, and you have that stupid little asshole in the back of your head that's always trying to defend yourself and like, don't think of me negatively, think of me positively, let me defend. And you won't have that in that situation. So there's actually a really fantastic self-reflection that's capable with AI,
Man,
that I think will expose a lot of like, why is my relationship going to shit? It's like, well, you are jealous every single day. Like
that is a
every single
great
day,
point.
you know, and it can actually kind of in a unbiased and unsocial pressured way give us that information.
Yeah.
But back to Samurai. So one of the big things is like, this is like a really dangerous precedent because they don't custody anybody's funds.
Yep.
And they're being prosecuted as a money transmitter.
Yeah.
Now, I think they have a lot of, unfortunately, they have a lot of very subjective evidence that's probably going to really hurt Samurai's case. That they basically boast that you know, illegal activity, dark web sort of mixing, that you can use our software for it. And that's not going to help because anybody who doesn't understand is just going to see promoting illegal activity.
Right.
But the precedent of setting the precedent that someone building software and someone batching information together for other people, that this is money transmission, that this is money laundering. They didn't send money anywhere. They didn't send money to anybody. That is not money laundering by any definition of the concept. Not to mention that money laundering is a bullshit thing that's just made up. That it's not a crime. You can't. If you commit murder, that's a crime. If you help somebody fund a car to go commit murder, that's not. You didn't money launder for the murderer. Like, that's not a crime. Money laundering is just a made up crime that allows them to selectively punish people who are their political opposition. I mean, it's how they got shit. Anyway, it's a made up crime. And the attacks on privacy are going to get worse. And it's a big problem. There's a trade-off with Bitcoin, and we still never found there's no perfect solution to this. And I also, the difficulty of creating a technical solution that doesn't require a coordinator makes it even harder. And I really hope that with peer-to-peer markets and the kind of the pair stack and Nostr, that kind of uncoordinated, uncentralized, no centralized coordinator, kind of peer-to-peer batching, so to speak, coin joining, that we kind of figure out the piece of the puzzle that makes that really, really easy. Because when you think about it, coin joining and mixing, like trying to have some degree of privacy on chain, should actually mean lower cost, which would be amazing. If you could just sell it as a transaction compression service where you're essentially just batching, so that you're getting rid of that extra, transaction IDs, like all the excess information. There's like some subset of, signatures and all of this stuff. Like if you can do like with Taproot, I think it's Taproot that allows you to do. Oh no, that's cross input signature aggregation. Anyway, but there's a lot of different tools that we can take advantage of, and this normal concept of just batching, there's a lot of things that we can do to make the private option the cheaper option. And that's really what I hope to see, like breaking that feedback loop where it's actually economical to go the private route when it comes to chain analysis. Because it's just cheaper to do, because I think obviously data set is what makes privacy better, or the anonymization set, right? And how many people are actually participating. And most people don't care about privacy until it's too late. Most people don't think about it. It's not top of mind. They don't even know, like, if you got nothing to hide, why the hell do you want to be private? It's like, I don't know, put a glass door on your bathroom, you dumbass. What are you doing in there? Snorting coke? No, you're taking a shit. Nobody wants to see it. You don't want anybody to see it. Privacy is like basic is about basic human existence, for crying out loud. Like going back to like so much of what we talked about with the social pressures and stuff. Like when you think you're being watched, you're a different person. You censor yourself. You carry yourself differently. You're only really you. You're only really human when you are actually alone, when you can actually be fully private and you're doing something stupid. Like you're cooking on the pans. You're like, I'm cooking with a pan and I'm putting in the coconut oil. You know, like
You do that too?
Yes, of course I fucking do. It's so much better to cook that way.
I think that is a great segue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that it just, you get that moment where you're by yourself. If you don't have privacy, you don't get to find out who you are. You only ever become or are what you expect others to want from you, what the social pressure asks of you. And a world without privacy is not a good world to be in.
Yeah. Real quick before the segue. So I want to shout out to Travis, who's a Bitcoin veteran, prior military guy, prior law enforcement guy. He's sort of a on-chain forensics expert. He did a lot of stuff for law enforcement in a prior life, actually tracking on-chain transactions, that kind of stuff. And he said a thing. He put this on Noster, talking about what happened with Samurai Wallet.
What are you talking about?
And he said, this is the part that blew me away. He goes, the indictment is constantly referring to Samurai Wallet as an application that is conducting or facilitating the mixing through a centralized coordinator who controls the application, and server is the question. Allegedly, the two men, allegedly, named in the indictment. And then when it comes to Samurai Wallet's Whirlpool service, through their server, their application is selecting the inputs. Their application is communicating information between users. It's using private keys on behalf of the users, broadcasting mixing transactions, etc. But the picture the indictment is painting is that the application and server are essentially doing the money laundering, as opposed to the users using the service. Similar verbiage and logic are used to describe Samurai Wallet's Ricochet service, etc. But the point of all this is that the above summary is the most shocking piece of the indictment. I'm reading this directly from this guy's Noster. He goes, the implications of this reach beyond Bitcoin-related apps and services. Think of the apps and services just in general that a user could use to engage in criminal behavior. Now think of arresting the developers and creators for what their users did.
Yeah,
we are in a weird world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good because their lack of understanding in the technicals, in actually what's going on, is going to be overridden likely by what it looks like. And it does look like what they say. If you know how it actually works, you know that's not at all what it is.
Yeah, but his argument is they know exactly how it works. Like he read all of the information available, and he's like, yeah, they have a very thorough understanding of how this works. The push right now is to conflate the idea of money laundering with the desire to have privacy in your transactions.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to kind of like mix it all together and create this narrative where if you want privacy in your transactions, that somehow also is related to money laundering. And they're trying to create this narrative in the mind of the public.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think most of the public is asleep enough that they've been slowly encroaching that direction for a really long time, and it's been working. I mean, the amount of normies who say, you know, if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you don't have anything to hide? And it's just such an unbelievably profoundly naive statement. Like naive to the point of retardation. Like it's just like, dude, like send me your passwords. Like what are you talking about?
But is that even a normie statement, or is that just like maybe half the population? Because I feel like that is changing. Where like your norm, I don't know, your normal person that just is concerned about their freedoms they wouldn't say that line.
It's
Yeah.
if the
There's
fifth
momentum against it. There's momentum against it.
Yeah.
But I worry the political class doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, they're looking for any interpretation, and it's amazing how subtle of an interpretation they can get with something like this. Like, it's a super dangerous precedent because it would essentially begin to encompass anything, virtually any and all Bitcoin related software would immediately fall in this category. Like, you could stretch it to be like the next fight would be LSPs.
Yeah, they can start indicting developers.
It's like, well, no, like, look at what's actually happening. We're just moving money back and forth in a channel between the two of us. We are not transmitting money. Like, they are not a custodian. But if they can just get to the point where, because that's what that's the goal of the software, that's the intention of the software, that now anybody who builds or runs this software is literally committing the crime of the intention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's
very dangerous.
Yeah, and it just further goes to serve their purpose of painting otherwise innocent people as criminals. And frightening people away. I mean, I anticipate, some of the excitement and some of the draw towards adoption towards Bitcoin is going to kind of, be diminished and weakened for a period of time, because that whole thought process of there you go, I told you, that's for freaking criminals. Okay, look at this big company over here that's out here doing criminal shit, and all the people that use it, they're probably breaking the law. If you get into Bitcoin, you're going to get arrested too. And so that's part of the dang process, and they know what they're doing, and they understand how to manipulate the public.
It's a two-pronged attack. I mean, it's if you do the self-custody route, if you do this route for privacy, if you do this route where you're sovereign and you're in control of your money, but these ETFs are okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a way to it's a way to herd. Like, they're running a plantation and they're trying to herd the population. And we created ways through the gate and started building our own little things and running our own little services outside of their system. And they're trying to put new gates up, and they're trying to herd everybody in. And what they do by making the subset of everything illegal, it's funny. It's never about actually stopping crime. That's why they don't, like, JP Morgan isn't in jail for the billions in money laundering for Epstein's child sex trafficking ring that went on for decades. They don't give a shit about that. They don't give a shit about money laundering at all. They give a shit about people that undermine their power.
That's it.
And when you make everything a crime, when everybody's committing 3 felonies a day without even knowing it, crime is meaningless. It means nothing. It's only you can't. There is the scope of the number of people who are quote unquote criminals is so great that what they get to do is they just get to point and prosecute anybody who stands in the way of their power, who challenges their opinion, who. It's the same thing they did with doctors in the whole COVID fiasco. Is that like, okay, well, if we can control the licensing, if we can control the pharmaceutical partnerships, if we can control the management and who is allowed to build a hospital, at every stack, they get more and more control, more and more places to squeeze the throat of all of the people around them, and then suddenly you simply say the wrong thing and you're in violation of this, and this. It's like, maybe it doesn't make sense to get the vaccine because we don't know shit about this. The very data that they published, the people in the placebo, in the actual test, more people died than in the placebo. Like, and they just said it was unrelated. We don't have enough data to suggest even come close to coming to that conclusion. And just an honest assessment of the data, your license is gone. Your license, you're spreading misinformation. You're a threat to public health, and the whole thing. When you make everything a crime, it means that the only people who are criminals are the ones who aren't falling in line. And that's what this is. Everything about Bitcoin is going to be in a slow, incremental way turned into a crime unless it's inside their fence.
Yep.
And that sucks, but
Yeah, we're gonna tell those bastards
it's a
to
fight
fuck
we knew
off.
was coming. Yeah,
That's why it's so important. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You know what else is important?
Yeah! Wah, 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 wah!
What have we got here? A fucking comedian, private joker.
All right, Guy, because you watch the show all the time, you know what the hell is going on. It's story time. This is where we have our guests tell a funny story. I know you really kind of outdid yourself with American Hodl. You got a funny story from Bitcoin, from the trenches of fighting the shitcoinery and all the bullshit AI and the Bitcoin, toxics and all that fun stuff out there.
Or some stuff that went down at a conference, because I know I've seen you at a couple.
Oh man, I don't know if I got
while you
off
think
the top
about
of my head. I forgot about this. I didn't plan ahead for this. I do have a funny story, but it's not anything to do with Bitcoin. I got some stories.
It can be about anything. Personal.
Yeah,
the more personal and the more embarrassing, the better.
Okay, hold on a second. My camera died again.
I was gonna say before we keep going, fix that.
It's
AI
literally
camera of yours.
Guy, just for your information,
It just resets looking at the ground for no reason.
That's what gimbals do. They find that north and they just go.
Makes sense. It's not even north. No, it's like down and to the right. It's like this. It makes no sense.
For your information, it's the interactive screen stuff that Apple's got. So like whenever you sees you like put your thumb up, or it thinks you're putting your thumb up, and it has that reaction like on my screen, that's when it freezes.
The last time it did it, it froze with your old thumb up.
You can turn that off in your settings.
Oh, you can? Oh, thank you. I was wondering what the hell. I had
But
no
why
idea
would you
what
want to when you could do this?
Oh wow, that's cool. Oh, I'm not turning that off.
Dude, yeah, why would you want to turn this off? Why would you want to turn off the love? Why would you want to turn that off?
I cannot believe I didn't know about this. I was
completely.
I was so curious about what that was.
Turning it off is boo.
I
hope we bought you some time to think of a funny embarrassing story.
I got an old story. There's about 40 people in the world somewhere that think I am the god of beer pong.
Okay. All right.
So I was in college, and we were going out to a party, and you do your normal selection of who's DD. I can't remember exactly why, but I ended up being DD, and so I wasn't drinking. And we had like 4 or 5 people out, and we went out to this party, and I did not really know anyone there, but I usually thrive pretty good in a completely random environment. And I enjoy going in completely unknown and just kind of like seeing like, well, what the f- is happening up here? Let's do this. And because I wasn't drinking, I'm gonna have to figure out how to make my own fun. And we go to this party, and there's like 30, 40 people there. And right in front of the door, they have a big long table, beer pong playing, and we're hanging out. We go up. You know how everybody like separates out into their little groups, and like everybody's like in 4 or 5 people in a group, and they huddle in their little corners, and they spread around all the apartment. And we went off into one, and one guy was like, I was getting to know people, and he's like, "Oh man, you want to play some beer pong?" And I was like, "Oh no, I can't do that. I'm gonna be DD tonight, so I can't drink. And trust me, you don't want to play anyway, because I'll just destroy you. And I don't mean that like arrogant or anything. Like I'm not trying to be that. Like, but I'm really good at beer pong." And he was like, "What? No, you come on. We have to play." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry, I'm DD, and you just don't want it." And one of my good friends, Leah, was there with me, and she was drinking, and we were having a blast. She didn't miss a beat, and she was like, "Oh yeah, he's amazing. For the record, I'm not good at beer pong. I I mean, like if you give me like 2 or 3 drinks, like maybe at some point I'll start to sync them and I'll be like, oh, and I think I'm good, but I'm not really that good. I'm certainly not the god of beer pong. But this continued to go on, and I was talking to him and I said, listen, I'm actually came in 13th in the world championships of beer pong. And he was like, wait, what? And like 13th is like one of those numbers that like,
yeah,
you wouldn't really look it up. You know, it's like almost believable. It's like, okay, yeah, the 13th in the world beer pong player could actually be in this room right now. And I was doing it with just enough little, like, maybe he's being sarcastic, and I'd throw in like a little bit like exaggerated comments from time to time, but then I'd reel it back in. Be like, no, but seriously, I'm 13th in the world at beer pong. And then I started going into, and Leah was just like right there, egging me, like immediately, like, oh yeah. When he went to Korea last year, he went and was like, oh yeah, I was playing against Sun Tong, and that guy, holy crap, that guy is a legend. And then we started talking about like stories of, you know, things that happened in the hotel, and I was just kind of making stuff up on the fly. And then we basically upped from that group after half of the people were convinced that I was full of shit, and the other half of people were like, this guy's probably like amazing at beer pong. And then we moved to the next group, and we started doing this all over again. And it got to the point where people started kind of leading to the next group. Like Leah would actually head over to the next group ahead of me and start talking about me going to Korea and how, like, being in the championship and like all of this stuff, so that it was already set. The stage was already set, and they're like lobbing the balls, you know, it's like on the t-ball thing, and I'm just ready to like as soon as I get into the next group. And we did this all night long. This was me having fun when I'm not able to drink. And I went to every single group, and every single one was like, come on, man, you gotta play a game. And I was like, nah, seriously, I'm not drinking, and I'm just gonna demolish. Listen, it's just not a good idea. And everybody's egging me on. And it just became the thing at the party that I was the god of beer pong who refused to play. And then finally the night is starting to calm down a little bit, and we have to leave. One of our friends have to leave, so we're one of the first ones heading out. And as we do, you know, the music's blaring and everything, and we're going out to the door. And it's just like one of those things that you just feel really good, like you were just like into it all night, you know. And it's like, yeah, I'm the god of beer pong. And we get to the door, and one very attractive girl who was playing beer pong at the time handed the ping pong balls to me, and she said, celebrity shot. And I was like, you know what, sure. And I took both of the ping pong balls, and I shit you not, it's the most cinematic moment of my entire life. They stopped the music, and the whole room went silent, and I was like, this is my moment. And I went up, and I'm, by the way, like I said, the beer pong table is like right next to the door, so I'm like right there, and I take them, throw the first one, make it right in the end cup, throw the next one, make it right in the cup right behind it. Everybody's dead silent. I said, all right, guys, I'll catch you later. Shut the door. And Leah was like, what? How the fuck did you do that? I said, I don't know, but we just got to get out of here before they asked me to do it again. And we left, bailed on that party, and 40 people somewhere in this world are certain that I will never miss a cup if you put me on a beer pong table.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's how this story has to end, boys and girls.
Man, I love it.
Usually I'd throw it around the horn, but seeing that we're well over time, I want to be we've already disrespected Guy's time. Guy, man, thank you for the story. Thanks for the laughs and the insight into AI and everything else. I think I speak for everybody here. Absolutely fantastic interview and great guest. I'm sure we knew that coming into it, but thank you from all of us for making time and sharing this with us. We definitely really appreciate it, and we appreciate everything you're doing in the Bitcoin space, the AI space, and man, keep up the fantastic work. If you need a role model, ladies and gents, Guy might be one of the best one out there in this space. Go out there and create
I
as
am not
much
a
as
role
you can.
model.
Well, you're a hell of a
I
beer
can
pong
be
player.
your
Apparently.
beer pong trainer, though.
That's right.
I can do that.
Yeah. Thanks to Jordan, Mike, Alex, Gabe for being here and doing this as well. And thanks to everybody out there in this Bitcoin veterans community. You guys are absolutely crushing it. There is so much going on in the space. If you want to get some deeply discounted tickets for Pacific Bitcoin or Nashville, let us know. You can get in to our DMs and we will get you some very deep discounted 70%, maybe even more than that for some others. Yeah, no, Guy, you need a ticket, maybe. I don't know. But for everybody else out there, we really appreciate everything you're doing. And if you want to get involved, just contact us and we will get you involved in this amazing crew. Until next time, we will see you then. Peace.